Hello, everybody. Let me tell you a new story today. Today, we are going to talk about a real story, which is shared by one of my friends called Ram. Of course, this is an online name. This story happened when he was in high school. He's from Dandong, Liaoning province, and there was an ice cream factory near his home. It made cold drinks, ice creams, and other products. It was about a medium-sized factory. It had its own production workshops and a refrigerated warehouse. This incident happened in this factory. The boss of the factory was a good friend of Ram's father. Because it was very close to their home and his father was a good friend of the boss took good care of Ram and told Ram's parents, if the child wants to eat ice cream, you can come to our factory to get them anytime. They're free. Because the two families had a long-term real friendship, sometimes Ram went to this factory to pick up some ice cream products. He needed to talk to someone in the factory and someone would help him to get what he wanted. Sometimes the workshop did not have ready-made products, so they went to the refrigerated warehouse to get them. He couldn't take much and just ate some at home, so it didn't matter. The workers in the factory all knew that this little boy was the son of the boss man's friend, and everyone was very polite to him. Every time he came, someone would help him get what he needed. One summer, a very bad thing happened in his factory. Because the weather was hot in summer, and there was a huge demand for cold drinks and ice cream products. The business was very good, and there were many orders. There was a shortage of manpower in the factory, so some new workers were recruited and started working after simple training. One night, a new worker was on duty. The next day, the other workers came to work and found that they could not find this person. That guy disappeared. So where did this guy go? Everyone looked for him together and finally found him in a refrigerated warehouse. Yes, the man had frozen to death. And the status of being frozen to death was particularly scary. This person was wearing a vest, shorts, with no factory uniform. Everyone analyzed whether he felt hot during the night shift and came to the refrigerated warehouse to cool down. Regardless of the reason, death in a factory was a very serious safety incident. So the factory owner was heavily fined by the government and has to suspend operations for rectification. The family of the dead person later filed a lawsuit in court, demanded the factory to pay high losses. After nearly a year of suspension, and the boss spent a lot of money before the factory officially started producing products again. However, the factory has been closed for almost a year, and most of the old workers have already found other jobs. So the factory could recruit a few old workers and a lot of new workers. Many of the new workers were inexperienced. So the boss spent a lot of time training these employees. The boss knew that the door of the refrigerated warehouse would not be locked and would be easily opened if there was someone inside. So he thought this incident was very strange. He also formulated new regulations to never allow workers to enter the refrigerated warehouse alone, at least two workers together. Spare keys, cotton-padded clothes, etc. were prepared inside too. At least two people were required to be on duty at night. Even if they go to the toilet, two people were required to go together. Strictly prevent any accidents happen again. But Less than 3 weeks after the factory resumed, something happened at the factory again. Two people in the factory were moving products out of the refrigerated warehouse. One person was moving boxes of products out of the warehouse. Another worker was at the door. They were taking and putting boxes on a little truck outside the warehouse. The door of the warehouse was half open. Just when the worker inside moved a box of goods and walked towards the door, suddenly the door closed by itself. The worker outside was an old man. He knew that the people had frozen to death before, was about to take out the key he carried with him to open the door. Before the door was opened, he heard the worker was screaming loudly and crazily inside. The old worker opened the door immediately and asked, "What happened?" The new worker's face was pale. He ran out of the warehouse quickly, knelt down next to the little truck, and then shouted loudly, "I was scared to death. There was someone inside." The old employee asked, "Who was inside?" The new worker said, "I don't know. I was carrying a box of goods towards the door. Suddenly the door closed. I continued walking forward and was about to go and open the door. Suddenly, I found a person hiding behind the door. I didn't know this person. When and how did he come in? This man is so strange. He was wearing a vest and shorts in a refrigerated warehouse with white air coming out of his body, and his face was pale. And he looked at me in a very strange way. He actually lowered his head and raised his eyes, and I can see his eyes full of anger. I was scared to death." When the old worker heard this, he was very frightened because he knew that person had frozen to death before. The two workers went to the workshop to call for help quickly and called a dozen of people back to the warehouse together. They searched the whole warehouse and found that there was no one there. Someone asked the new employee, "Did you say it wrong?" The employee said, "How is this possible? How could I say it wrong? He was standing there wearing a vest and shorts." This new employee had only been in the factory for 2 weeks. He only knew that someone had frozen to death before because he has been given safety education after he joined this factory. However, he did not know that this person was wearing a vest and shorts when he died. One of the old workers said, "Did you know? The man who froze to death died here. He was wearing only a vest and shorts when he died." When a new worker heard this, he lost his mind and cried, "Damn it! It seems that I have seen a ghost. How is this possible? I don't know anything. I did not hurt him. Why did he come to scare me?" Some workers dragged him back to the dormitory to take a break. Everyone came to the dormitory. Several workers were discussing this situation. Suddenly, one of them said, "Oh, today is the first anniversary of the person who died." Everyone also remembered it. Later, some workers got a pile of paper money at the door of the warehouse, burnt them in a steel basin, and while burning, they said, "Don't scare us. We're all here to work. Carry the rice to the table. The old and young are waiting at home. Please don't bother us, and please take the money." So, how did Ram know this? A worker in the factory told him. Ram and he both liked to play computer games, so they were very familiar with each other and often played games together in internet cafes. This man was actually very young, only a few years older than Ram, but he stopped going to school after graduating from junior high school and worked in his factory for several years, so he knew the whole story. After hearing the story, Ram didn't believe it at all. How could there be such a strange thing? He must have seen it wrong. After this incident, the factory workers were extremely reluctant to enter the warehouse again, unless two or more people go in together. One day, Ram's classmate came to him and said he wanted to buy 2 boxes of milk ice cream. So they went to the factory together. However, when they arrived at the factory, they found that there was no stock in a workshop, and they had to go to the refrigerated warehouse. No one else was willing to go, but Ram asked a worker he was familiar with. This man was too embarrassed to refuse, so he went to the warehouse with Ram. When they arrived at the door, they put on a cotton-padded cloth. The worker also checked the keys in his pocket. They opened the door and walked in together. They found the milk ice cream. Each of them carried a box. Just as they turned around to go out, suddenly the lights in the warehouse went out with a bang. The entire room went dark immediately. There was only a little light coming in from the half-open door. Ram was shocked. At this time, he heard the old employee said, "Don't panic. I have a flashlight." He was holding the ice cream box in one hand and holding a flashlight in the other hand. There were only a few steps to get out of the warehouse. But as soon as they turned on the flashlight, both of them heard something at the same time behind them. Someone was crying in a corner like this. The cry was clearly heard. The voice was low, very sad, and it was a man's voice crying. Oh my God! The lights went out and Ram was shocked. Now he heard someone was crying behind him. Ram told me later. My legs were weak at the time. I felt like I couldn't hold my pee. I felt so scared that I almost peed my pants. Two of them did not even dare to look back. They walked directly to the door, opened it, and came out. After coming out, they hurried to the workshop. Ram's classmate was still waiting there. Ram did not say anything, but took him and ran into the bossman's office. As I said before, Ram's father and the bossman were very good friends. The bossman asked, "What happened?" Ram told him what he had just experienced. Ram's classmate also heard it, and he did not want the 2 boxes of the ice cream. He turned around and left the factory immediately. The bossman hired some professional guys to solve the problem later, but after spending some money, the problem was not solved. Ram has never been to the factory since this incident. Later, the factory's business got worse and worse, and the factory closed down within half a year. But the story is not over yet. Since the factory closed down, some rooms were left empty. So the bossman wanted to rent out of these rooms and make some money. A couple came from Dandong rented the room next to the warehouse. But days later, they came to talk to the bossman and said, "We don't want to rent this room anymore. Someone always knocks on our wall at night, and we can hear someone crying." The bossman knew that the warehouse was on the other side of the wall. The couple were frightened away quickly. Later, a family rented the same room. It was a very cold in winter. The family burned some wood to keep warm. Later, they were poisoned by carbon monoxide, and the whole family died inside of that room. The boss was very unlucky. This was a human life issue again. If someone dies in a house, the landlord, that factory bossman, was responsible too. Another lawsuit was filed over compensation issues. Later, because the local government wanted to build a highway, the entire factory was demolished. This is the end of the story, everybody. Please share what you think of the story and your stories. If you enjoy my work and would like to help me continue to bring these stories to you, here are a few ways you can show your support. Engage with my content. Subscribe to my channel or like my page. Give a thumb up to the stories you appreciate and share your thoughts, opinions in the comments. Spread the word. Share the stories with anyone who might find them enjoyable. Thank you so much, everybody. This is Alex's Story Time, and I am Alex. I got a lot of good stories to share with you. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye bye, everyone.